She didn't mean it to hurt, but when her granddaughter wrinkled her nose and stepped back mid-hug, something in Nancy softened and then quietly sank. Not from shame, not yet, but from a silence that filled the room where warmth used to be. No one told you about this part, that one day, after 60, your body might carry a scent others notice before you do. Not from neglect, not from being unclean, but from time settling into the skin in ways we never talked about. It's not your fault, but it is yours to tend, because dignity doesn't disappear with age. It just asks to be cared for more gently. 1. The first time you felt someone step back. It was supposed to be a simple hello, a warm hug, the kind that used to come without thinking. You opened your arms, just like always. But this time, they paused, shifted their weight, leaned in just enough to be polite, then gently pulled away before your arms had even closed around them. They didn't say anything. Their eyes were still kind, their smile still soft. But something in the air changed. You felt it, that flicker of distance that had nothing to do with space. At first, you brushed it off. Maybe they were in a rush. Maybe the room was warm. Maybe it was just your imagination looking for a reason to ache. But then it happened again, with someone else. A neighbor who stepped back mid-sentence. A friend who reached for a wave instead of a handshake. A grandchild who turned their head just slightly when you came in close. And slowly, quietly, your heart began to retreat before your body ever did. You didn't blame them. You told yourself it was age or change or nothing at all. But late at night, the question lingered. Did I do something wrong? That question didn't come from guilt. It came from grief. A kind you couldn't name, because no one had ever prepared you for the moment your presence might not feel welcome in the ways it used to. It wasn't rejection. Not exactly. But it felt like a curtain had fallen between you and closeness. One no one wanted to acknowledge. And maybe that's what hurt the most. Not that they stepped back, but that no one stayed long enough to ask if you felt it too. #2. The grief of not knowing. It wasn't the smell that hurt you. It was the silence around it. No one warned you. No aunt, no doctor, no book. You were told to expect gray hair, aching joints, maybe forgetfulness. But not this. Not that one day, your body might carry a scent that speaks before you do. And not in cruelty, but in whispers. The subtle shift in someone's posture. The way they hold their breath just slightly when they lean in. The gentle offer of a mint when you didn't ask for one. You noticed it long before anyone said a word. But without answers, you filled in the blanks yourself. Maybe I'm not trying hard enough. Maybe I've become one of those people. Maybe I'm starting to repel the ones I love most. So you cleaned more, showered longer, changed your clothes twice, lit candles, scrubbed corners of your home that were already clean, hoping that something, anything, would feel like control again. But no one told you that after 60, your skin changes. Sebum builds differently. Hormones fade, your body's chemistry shifts quietly, and with it, a scent emerges. Not because you're dirty, but because you're aging. And aging is not a flaw, it's a transformation. Still, when no one talks about it, you internalize the shame. You start to believe it's something you did, or didn't do. But here's the truth. You weren't careless, you weren't failing, you were simply uninformed. Because the world talks endlessly about youth, and almost never about how to feel clean, seen, and close to others in a body that has lived this long. That's not your fault, but it can still be your power. You deserve to know, to understand, to reclaim the presence you thought was fading, not by hiding, but by gently learning how to stay close without fear. And that knowing, that's where your return begins. 3. The spots we were never taught to wash. No one ever sat you down and said, these are the places you will need to care for differently one day. No one told you that after 60, your body would change not just in strength or shape, but in quiet folds, softened skin, and deeper stillness. And that stillness would need special tending. You learned to bathe like you always have. Soap, water, done. But now, the old routine doesn't feel quite right, because the scent lingers, the clothes feel heavier, and there's a strange sense of being clean, but not quite fresh. It's not about scrubbing harder, it's about noticing where care has quietly gone missing. the spots no one taught you to wash, behind the ears, where oils gather unseen, under the breasts, where warmth and skin hold still, around the groin crease, where sweat forgets to move, inside the folds that arrive slowly, places your younger body didn't have, and no one warned you would one day appear. These aren't shameful places, they're lived-in places, places that carried your children, held your laughter, felt your grief, and now ask, very gently, to be seen again. Warm water, unscented soap, soft cloth, not rushed, not punished, just offered. Let air reach them, let light touch them. Not for beauty, not for anyone else, but because the act of washing can be a return to presence when done with kindness, not critique. This is not about hygiene, it's not about odor, it's not even about impressing anyone who might come close. This is about reclaiming a quiet intimacy with your own body, a body that has kept showing up for you, even when you stop showing up for it. Tending to these places isn't about shame, it's about reverence, because when care returns to the places you forgot to visit, you often find yourself waiting there too. 4. How movement and breath change the scent of the day. It's easy to think scent comes from the skin, from the surface, from what others can see and smell when they come near. But that's only part of it. There's another kind of scent, the one that drifts from stillness, from what doesn't move, from what stays quiet for too long inside you. You see, the body that rests too long holds more than comfort. It holds what's unspoken, what's unprocessed, what's waiting. The lungs, when not asked to stretch, start breathing shallower truths. The gut, when not nudged by walking, begins to slow, holding waste, both physical and emotional. Even the skin, that outer storyteller of who we are, grows less vibrant when the blood beneath it stops remembering how to dance. This isn't about exercise, it's about presence, about moving not to lose weight or gain approval, but to let your body breathe out what it no longer needs to carry. So walk, even if just to the mailbox, even if just once around the living room. Stretch your arms while the kettle boils, roll your shoulders back as the birds begin their morning, and open a window. Let the air shift. Let your breath touch something colder than your thoughts, because movement is not a chore, it's a cleansing. And your breath? It's the softest form of return, a way to re-enter your body without guilt, without effort, without punishment. The scent others notice isn't just from the outside, it's from what's been still too long on the inside. But the moment you begin to move, even gently, your body begins to remember its own circulation. And circulation is not just blood, it's memory, it's motion, it's self-respect. You don't have to do much, you only have to move enough to let the stillness break into breath again. 5. The first hug that came back. You didn't tell anyone you were changing, not because it was a secret, but because it felt sacred, private, something between you and the mirror, between your hands and the parts of your body you had quietly stopped tending to with love. You adjusted your bathing, you moved a little more, you breathed deeper in the mornings. Not for applause, not for anyone to notice, just because your body asked. And this time, you finally said yes. No one commented, no one acknowledged, but you could feel the shift in the air, a lightness, a clearing, as if your presence was no longer retreating behind you, but arriving fully with each step. And then, one afternoon, without asking, your granddaughter leaned in, not halfway, not politely. She wrapped both arms around you, pressed her cheek to your chest, and exhaled. No hesitation, no wrinkle of the nose, no invisible wall between skin and affection. Just warmth, just closeness, just the kind of hug you used to receive without realizing how much it meant. And in that moment, you didn't cry, but something inside softened. A place that had tensed for months, maybe years, finally let go. Because this was never about perfection. It was about presence. It was about letting care return to the parts of you that had quietly shut down from being overlooked, first by others, then by yourself. That hug didn't make everything disappear, but it whispered something to the deepest part of you. You're still someone they want to come close to. And that was enough. Not as proof you fixed something, but as a reminder that you never truly left. You just needed one quiet ritual to come home to the body that never stopped waiting for your kindness. It wasn't the scent that undid you. It was the space that opened between you and them. Soft, unspoken, but suddenly there. No one pointed it out. No one said anything. They just stepped back half an inch, held their breath a second too long, chose a wave instead of an embrace. And you, with all your grace, pretended not to notice. But your body did. Your heart did. Something inside began to ask a question you couldn't name. Am I still welcome this close? You weren't hurt by cruelty. You were hurt by the absence of language, by the way no one gave you the words for a change that found you quietly and made you feel like something had gone wrong. And in that silence, shame crept in. Not loudly, but like dust settling in corners you didn't know to clean. You thought it was your fault, that you were slipping away from what made you lovable. But the truth is simpler. No one ever told you what bodies after 60 might carry, or how to care for them with tenderness instead of fear. You weren't failing. You were just left out of the conversation. One you never knew you needed, until the distance started to grow. And now that you know, you don't need to explain it. You just need to return. It was never about fixing. It was always about remembering. That dignity doesn't live in perfection, but in attention. In the way you pause your morning not to cover something, but to tend to what's quietly asking to be seen. Dignity is not loud. It doesn't shout, "Look how clean I am." It whispers, "I still care about how I arrive in the world." And in that whisper, you return to yourself. Not because you were unworthy, but because you forgot how sacred your presence still is. You still matter. Your nearness still matters, and care, even the smallest kind, is not vanity. It's memory of who you've always been, someone worth leaning into. This was never about how you smelled. It was about how you were received. And the moment people stopped leaning in, you began to wonder if maybe you drifted too far to come back, but you didn't. You were never gone, only tucked behind years of caring for everyone but yourself. Now, you begin again, not loudly, not to prove anything, just with a hand on warm water, a breath through the window, a kindness where shame used to live. And maybe they won't notice right away. Maybe they won't say a word, but the space around you will soften, the distance will lessen, and you will feel it. That quiet sense that you can enter the room and be held fully again, without question. You're not returning to who you were. You're arriving as someone who never stopped deserving to be close. If you've ever stepped into a room and felt the air change, not with words, but with quiet distance, this is not your fault, and this is not your ending. Leave a whisper below, not to explain, but to mark your return, to softness, to dignity, to being seen without needing to be fixed. No applause, just presence. We'll hold a place for you here, always.